Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Geek and Speak, the Geek and Seek podcast. Today, this is the long-awaited Our Top Cards from Modern Horizons 3. There's a lot of really powerful stuff in this set, and the Commander set that's going along with it, because when you think Modern, I know you're actually thinking Commander. And with that said, we are mostly going to be talking about from the context of Commander, because that's the format we collectively play in our play group the most. But if we're talking about something that I think has Modern playability, I play a bit of Modern, so I will give some comments as we go along. But it's a very powerful set, and we're going to talk about a handful of our favorite cards today. So, hi, I'm your host, Morgan, and then joining me today, I have Preston. Preston, how's it going, man?
Good. Uh, Excited to talk about this set. Seems pretty strong, and I like a lot of these cards.
Yeah, same. And then we also have Jason with us today. Jason, how's it going, man?
Doing good. This set is insane. There's an insane amount of value in this for Commander specifically. What is modern? Is that even a thing anymore?
You're hurting my feelings, bro. You're hurting my feelings. But he has there is some validity in what Jason is saying. But before we get into the show, we are going to, if you would like to help the show, like our videos, leave comments. Let us know if there's a favorite on this one specifically. If there's a favorite card of yours that we end up not talking about, let us know. And then check out some of our other videos and subscribe if you're not subscribed. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can head over to patreon.com/geekandseek YouTube. And before we talk about our favorite cards, we should cycle back to something that Jason was saying, which is this kind of just feels like Commander Horizons, not really Modern Horizons, because the other Modern Horizons sets were like this, right? Where just by accident there will be cards that the Commander players want, right? But like there's cards like Hogak, which when they designed Hogak, it was like, oh, it's just a Commander card, and then it broke Modern and had to get banned. But the other ones had more like good Modern reprints and cards that were specifically designed to help certain decks in Modern. And there is a little bit of that in this set. And I think as far as power level, I like this better than Modern Horizons 2. Modern Horizons 2 was a little too pushed for what I liked for the format of Modern. And part of it is also we're getting some reprints that like they're cards that already existed, but now they're for the first time going to be legal in Modern, like Phyrexian Tower. That's pretty cool. That's a card that's very cool, very strong, kind of a staple in Commander if it wasn't so expensive, and it's going to be Modern legal for the first time. So that's all really cool stuff. But then we have like really weird stuff like Kirik, Son of Yawgmoth, and we have Brea and Kalia of the Vast. Just really weird reprint choices. And I'm not dissing that necessarily because that new art, ooh, it's spicy. I like it. I like it a lot, boys. But doesn't this feel weird for Modern?
I mean, yeah, but I don't care about modern, so more toys for Preston.
So one thing I will say about it is the reprints are really cool. Like one reprint, the reprint that I am the most excited about is Meltdown. I almost put it on this list because I'm really excited about it. But it's not a new card; it's a reprint. So it's destroy each artifact with mana value X or less, and it's just one red and X. So I just love this card because tokens, just great. Just get rid of somebody's treasures or somebody's clues or somebody's food tokens or somebody's map tokens. Whatever token is out there now that exists. But yeah, I'm with Preston. More toys for Commander. Let's go. This set is awesome.
It is a very cool set. Um, Meltdown is a cool reprint because this is, like I mentioned before, one of those cards that it's existed already, but because of this, it will be Modern legal for the first time. And as a guy who still likes Modern, I still think Modern's my favorite format when it's good. It has its moments where I'm like, oh, hold the heck up. But in general, I still really love Modern. And I think a lot of it is just like, hey, let's try to get the Commander players to buy our set. Uh, I kind of wish they would just make sets the way that they're supposed to make sets. And if the Commander players want those cards, that's fine. But that's not what it's made for. I don't like that everything is catered towards Commander players all the time now. So I think that's depressing. Do you guys think that's healthy? I mean, I know that Commander's like the top dog, and I know that's what you guys play the most, but just realistically speaking, it's not the only format. It didn't become the most popular format till very recently. That just doesn't seem healthy for the longevity of the game, don't you think?
I agree, because it's not Commander, it's Magic the Gathering, and Commander is a format, and I definitely think that it's important to keep the other formats in mind and make sure that they can all still have their relevance, especially because it's one way to bring new players into the game is having different formats. If there's only one way to play it, then it's not as interesting. And even though I really only play Commander, I just think that it's better for the game overall if every format gets things that, are important for the players in that format.
It's definitely not super healthy, but they got to sell packs.
That's true. With that said, if someone makes a Brea deck playable and modern, I will think that's kind of badass. I'm not going to lie. So we'll see what happens. It could be interesting. I should have mentioned this when I normally do the news section at the beginning, but we are doing a gameplay video for Modern Horizons 3. As of the time you guys are seeing this video, we will have just recorded that a couple days ago. So stay tuned. That will probably come out in 2 weeks or something like that. If I have an exact release date, I'll tell Jason to pop that date up on screen. I don't know what it is right now, but it's coming out soon. I just don't tell wizards. I'm having to print some proxies, okay? So, yeah, it should be. It's gonna be fun. Everyone, I think, is building really, really sweet decks, and I'm excited for this. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into our top. We're gonna go each into our top 3 cards from either Modern Horizons 3 or its corresponding Commander sets. Preston, do you want to start us off?
So first up, I have Tempt with Mayhem. It's 1 generic and 2 red for an instant tempting offer. Choose target instant or sorcery spell. Each opponent may copy that spell and may choose new targets for the copy they control. You copy that spell once, plus an additional time for each opponent who copied the spell this way. You may choose new targets for the copies you control. I just love a fun Commander card. This is going to be so goofy. It's doing what red wants to do in a fun way that's strong but not overpowered, usually. Unless everyone copies something broken, then that's on them. So I'm excited to try this out in a couple decks. It's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit of before cast on just some of the things that you could copy with it. You could hit someone's ramp spell, which is really funny if you do if you copy someone's X spell, do you get it for where X is equal to the same thing? So if someone goes and someone full sends and open the way, and then you copy this, and then everyone gets to full send and open the way, that's kind of funny. So you copy someone's Swords to Plowshare, you copy someone's Teferi's Protection. There are just funny things that will happen, but sometimes you will just have to use it strategically, Swords to Plowshare, Generous Gift, something like that, a removal spell, and be like, hey, we just gotta take care of some problematic things on the board, so I'm gonna cast this. Let's make a deal at the table. But there is also just a chaotic element of it as well, so I like it.
This card is. It's one of those cards that, when I think about the potential, it makes me laugh, so I'll call it hilarious. This card is hilarious, dude. Just imagine, somebody plays a counterspell, and you decide that you want to play Tempt with Mayhem on that counterspell. And now it's 8 counterspells are getting casted, and how confusing is this going to be? And imagine doing that when the stack is 5 spells deep, and now it's oh, man, that just sounds like it's going to be a really bad time, but, man, it'll be so funny. It'll be so funny.
I love the idea of like trying to play this on Magic Online.
Dude,
And you have
no!
like this giant stack, and everyone's confused about who has priority, which thing is copying which thing, which counter spell is hitting which counter spell, like
and then
and you have to click through all of those.
and then
This card is
Magic.
gonna
That sounds
crash Magic
hilarious.
Online so many times.
I was gonna say, and then Magic Online is just gonna crash and then
It's just gonna die.
uninstall itself.
So do you have any plans for this card, Preston? Are you playing it on the show? Are you gonna throw it in any of your decks?
I'm not. I'll have to look at all my decks and decide which ones want this. I'll for sure put it in goblins. Mono red. Might as well.
Yeah.
Might put it in my Joda deck, the black red one. Or Judith, sorry, not Joda. And I'll look at some of the other ones I have and see where all I want to fit this, and we'll try to make it happen on the show at some point.
Sounds good. Jason, do you want to go ahead and walk us through your first card?
So my first card is Strength of the Harvest. I'm sure if you've been previewing this set, you've seen this card, but it's 2 and then a hybrid Selesnya mana, and it's an enchantment aura, and it says enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each creature and or enchantment you control. And then, on the other side, it is a dual land that enters the battlefield tapped. A Selesnya dual land. This is just an auto-included any Selesnya deck really that exists, I guess, because pretty much all of them are going to deal with either enchantments or creatures. So this is just going to be, you can throw this into any deck that is just Selesnya, but then any deck that runs enchantments that has green and white in it, also an auto-include in those decks. And not only is it an auto-include, it's one of the best cards in the deck, and it's a land that enters the battlefield tapped. When's the last time that you said that a tapped land is one of the best cards in my deck? Obviously, this isn't one of the best cards in the deck for the tapped land part. But that's honestly, like, I've always said this about MDFCs. You play this 90% of the time as the land. Because if it's in your opening hand, there's absolutely no reason to hold on to it. This might be the exception. Because honestly, for 3 mana, this is almost worth just like holding in your hand, just in case. Because it can provide you a significant advantage in the game. But honestly, you play this as the land most of the time, especially if you get it early in the game.
Yeah, I think the MDFCs in this set are very power crept. I had Boggart Trawler on my original list for this set, and it's a 3-mana 3/1 that enters the battlefield, exile player's graveyard, and on the backside it's a black land. So that's kind of like a second Bajuka Bog for your deck, sort of, kind of, not as efficient. You have better timing control over it. But MDFCs in general are good because they have low opportunity cost, right? Especially if it's something that somewhat synergizes with your deck, like Jason said with Strength of the Harvest. If you just have a lot of creatures or you have a lot of enchantments, that's a 3-mana aura that might give enough of a buff to knock someone out of the game. And then all of the other ones, some of the other ones are a little bit more niche. Some of them are a little bit more open-ended. I think the Dimir one is really insane. The Waterlog Teachings. It's a 4-mana instant speed tutor for an instant or a sorcery. Oh, no, instant or a card with flash to put in your hand. And I think in general, MDFCs are... and also... Sorry, I'm exhausted. I am adjusting to getting back into the flow of things after vacation. But MDFCs, they are usually a slightly overcosted spell, but if they slide in your deck, they're great. But then they're a land when you need the land, like Jason said. And in this set specifically, they're power crept because it's the first time we're getting dual lands on the backside. And all of the monocolored ones in this set have the option to pay the 3 life to enter untapped, which when we got MDFCs for the first time in Zendikar Rising, it was only the Mythics that had that. So they are incredibly power crept in this set.
I feel like that those cards were... those cards had to be more designed for Commander, right? Because, I mean, in Modern, is it really beneficial to pay 3 life for that?
In Modern, I only think a couple of these are probably Modern playable. But when Zendikar Rising was Standard legal, these were the bomb.com. You wouldn't really, because only the Mythic ones you could have come in untapped. The black one, I think, actually does get Modern play sometimes. Those were so heavily played because it gives you something to do if you it prevents flooding, really. So they're not really played in Modern that much. Maybe some of these will get a little bit of Modern play, but I'm not convinced of that. So maybe they are more of a Commander thing, but they have been proven to get play in constructed formats just because they sort of are a spell, but they're sort of a land. So it makes a higher percentage of your starting hands keepable, and then when you get into top deck mode later in the game, it makes that more flexible as well.
And honestly, this to me is it's probably the best one out of the dual colors in my opinion. But I could have put a couple ones here. I could have put Legion Leadership. That one's incredible. Revitalizing Repass was the one I had on this list initially. These are really, really, really powerful.
What do you think, Preston?
Yeah, I don't like the original modal dual face cards. I thought I never liked them. I thought they were bad. I never wanted to put any of them in my decks really. Besides, I think maybe one or two got a couple plays from me.
Balagad Recovery is pretty good.
That's the one I was
going
to
talk
about was Balagad Recovery.
I played stuff, but
and then the modal dual face lands that are like one color on one side, one color on the other side. Those ones are fine because they enter untapped.
Oh yeah.
Like the pathway lands.
Yeah,
I play those in 2-color decks. Yeah.
But I know what you mean. I know what you mean. The ones that have spells on the other side that are really kind of underwhelming, except Balagad Recovery, honestly.
Yeah, I never played any of them. Everyone else hyped them up when they were coming out. I just did not care for them. But these ones, pretty spicy. I'm definitely gonna play the black and green one in any deck it can fit. I always love a good protect your creature spells. Feather's gonna get the Legion Leadership for sure.
God dang it! Why did we do this? Why did they do that? Why did they give Feather something else? If it's not Feather, they're giving it to Light Paws because they're giving White something else crazy. But I'm not complaining, I guess. I like it.
I actually like that a lot of them are more specific, though, because I don't like cards that are just auto-includey. Like Balagad Recovery, for example, it should just go in most green decks, you know? Whereas even like one of the better ones, I think, is Witch Enchanter, which is the mono white one from the set. It's a 4-mana 2/2 that when it enters the battlefield, it blows up an artifact or enchantment. And then on the backside, it's a white land. That is like not bad by any means, but like if you have green, you have more efficient ways of doing that, right? Or so it's like tailored towards mono white or white with cards that can't really deal with enchantments. So it's I don't know. I just really like MDFCs, man.
I do too.
I like that they're not like auto includes in every deck, but they're going to go in a lot of decks. They're going to give you a lot of flexibility in your gameplay.
Disciple of Freyerly's also almost made my list, but I ended up not including it. I liked that one a lot.
All right, I'll go ahead and talk to you guys about my first pick. This is one that I don't really think I heard anyone talking about during spoiler seasons, but I think these are pretty sweet. These are the Landscape Cycle. So there is one for all 10 of the 3 color combinations. So they enter the battlefield untapped. They tap for a colorless mana, and then you can tap them to sacrifice them to find a basic of their corresponding colors. And then they also have cycling, where you pay one of each of those colors. So, for example, there's Bountiful Landscape, which is the Teamer one. Taps for a colorless, or you can tap it to sacrifice it to find a basic forest, island, or mountain. And then you can cycle it for green, blue, red. So I like these for a few reasons. One, I think it's an upgrade from like the 3-color common fetches that we had in like Streets of New Capenna, because these are you have better timing over those. Like those you had to, I think, were better than like Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse. And I think we're just at the point where even if you're on a budget, you shouldn't be playing Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse. Like there just needs, like that's the kind of power creep I'm okay with, you know, as we start getting better fetch lands for a budget. And the Streets of New Capenna ones, Preston, I'd like to get your feedback on those because I know you've been talked before about how you're kind of down on those. But I thought in 3-color decks, those were pretty good. But these are way better because if you need to go find the basic, you can find the basic. But also, if you just need the 1 extra mana and you don't care about the colored pip right away, you can just tap it for colorless and then go find it later, find the basic later. But then later in the game, if you're flooding out or whatever, you can cycle it. Now, because of color identity rules, these are restricted to 3, 4, 5-color decks, right? You can't play these in 1 or 2-color decks. But I think in 3-color decks specifically, and then maybe 4 or 5-color decks if you are like artifact heavy and you have a lot of colorless pips or whatever, then maybe they go up. But I think in 3-color decks specifically, these might be the new best fetch land on a budget.
Yeah, so I didn't like those ones because of that timing restriction. I have, in a lot of games, like waited to crack my Terramorphic or Evolving Wilds until a turn or two later after playing them because I had more like landfall triggers or something I could get value out of. So like or like or like a sacrifice trigger or something. So like that's why I don't like the New Capenna ones because it takes that timing away. These ones I'm a very big fan of. It's got the cycling built in. I also don't like how many lands you can play outside of the colors they're supposed to technically be for. I've never been a fan of that, so these ones making you put them in the correct color decks I enjoy. You get to choose the timing and you get to tap them for colorless if you're not ready to sacrifice. These are for sure the best of these sort of like cheap sack lands on a budget if you can fit them in the color deck.
First of all, the one thing that I wanted to say as soon as I saw these cards was some of the best land art. I
like them. Yeah,
I like for the base card, some of the best land art out there. Like this is
look at Seething Landscape here, the Grixis one, Seething Landscape. That is sexy looking.
Like even like Deceptive Landscape, that desert. Like I really just like the way that it looks. But yeah, I mean, they're also just really strong and really good options. I'm just thinking about how good these would be in land decks that you could make 3 colors. Any 3-color pair that has blue and green in it, you could turn into a lands deck, and this is going to be an all-star in that. But just as a budget option, such an incredible series of lands. I'm really impressed with all of the lands in this set, honestly. It's I would say it's probably the best set. The best overall lands in a set that we've had in a really long time. Especially, I mean, if you consider the fact that we're getting reprints of fetch lands.
I mean, I think the real best new lands we've gotten recently are the Surveil lands. I remember when those were pre-ordering, and I was like, oh, they're going to be like budget lands, you know? They're like pre-ordering for like $2, and now they're like 12. I'm like, crap, people figured it out.
I meant as a whole. Like the Surveil lands, like that's type of dual land, like that was, you're right, probably one of the best ones that we've gotten, probably the best that we've gotten in a while. But as a whole, looking at all of the lands that are in this set, like as a whole, it's just, I'm really impressed.
So would you guys ever consider playing these? Obviously, you can't play them in 1 or 2-color decks because of the color identity rule of Commander. But would you play them in 4 or 5-color decks or on a budget, or would you only play them in 3-color decks?
I'd for sure play them in a 4-color deck. 5-color, honestly, 5-color, at this point, there's so many cheap options. I think you could do slightly better than this, but if you really wanted to go micro budget, these aren't a terrible idea.
Yeah, because I think 5-color, and my mind always goes to Ur-Dragon, and I'm like, is this good in Ur-Dragon? Not really.
Well, especially if you're a 5-color deck, it's not like you can run all 10 of them, right?
Yeah, seriously.
Like, you can't do that, probably, but I don't know. Food for thought. But I think they're cool. So, Preston, why don't you go ahead and talk to us about your second card?
Next up, I
This card's
have
awesome.
Rampant Frogantua. It's a 3/3 creature frog for 2 and a green. It has trample. It says it gets +10/+10 for each player who has lost the game. And then whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you can mill that many cards, put any number of land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped. This card's so cool. It's really dumb, but it's so cool. I love big, dumb green creatures, and this is a fantastic, genuinely somewhat powerful card. And it's a good actual game finisher, so I like that.
Yeah, the one downside that I think we talked about this in our group chat. The one downside of this card that I see is that there's a lot of games where it just ends, right? And it's not like people are getting picked off. There's a lot of times where like the person who wins the game is going to kill all 3 of his opponents at the same time. Like that's like fairly common. So in that case, it's like this is a 3-mana 3/3 with trample. Oh wow, what a badass. But in all of the games where that doesn't happen, this thing's going to be huge, and then it's going to help you take out the other players, which is insane. And I think in any graveyard deck, in any lands deck, this is insane because it's going to give you insane amounts of ramp while also, if you're a graveyard deck, giving you a whole lot of extra resources to work with. So I think for 3 mana, this is actually kind of cracked.
Yeah, this is going in my strong deck for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I think that you're kind of undervaluing the card, Morgan, a little bit because
it's really good.
Well, the way that you described the card a second ago, you said, I mean, otherwise it's just a 3/3 with trample for 3 mana, and then you stopped. But there is another ability on there that says when it deals combat damage to a player, mill that many cards. Put any number of lands from, them onto the battlefield tapped. Like, that is relevant on a 3/3 with trample because, especially in green, there are plenty of ways to make this thing bigger.
I'm definitely going to put it in my Muldrotha deck because even if... Even at that, like, bad situation that I mentioned, which isn't even necessarily going to happen every game. There's a lot of games where it is like people are getting picked off one by one. Even in those like bad situations, it's still a 3-mana body that if you have an open attack, you can get in on someone, and it has trample, so it's more likely to happen even if they have a 1/1 or a 2/2 or something, right? You're going to be putting stuff in your graveyard. And even if you're not able to hit a land, right? If it hits a land, you're ramping. If you don't hit a land and you're, say, some kind of graveyard deck, or just land decks in general are just like pseudo graveyard decks anyways, you're building your resources. So I actually really like this. It's definitely going to go in my Muldrotha deck.
I'm putting it in Tatiova for sure.
Yeah, that'll be cracked. Yeah, he's a goofy guy. I like him. All right, Jason, talk to us about your second favorite card from the set.
So my second favorite card from the set is Fanatic of Rhonas. Now, I went with Fanatic of Rhonas as my second favorite card because it's probably just the best mana dork in existence at this point. Like, right? As far as, like, generating mana, like, it's probably the best. In most games of Commander, you're going to have a creature that's power 4 or greater. And if you don't, you're probably not in a position to win the game. At least that's how I feel. But then the fact that it can meet its own restriction by eternalizing it, like it can be the creature with power 4 or greater and then tap for 4. It's just so good. And if you're playing this in a deck where you can give it haste, which Concordant Crossroads is a thing. So you could do that in mono green. This could be pay 2 mana, get 4 mana, the same turn, the same instance. So this card is just super powerful, and I think that it's just immediately the best mana dork ever printed. I mean, take away everything else, a 1/4 mana dork that makes you a green mana for 2, that's already gonna go into every single green deck. And then it kind of has a somewhat relevant creature type with Druid, I guess. At least they didn't make it like oh god, what's the one tribe that's not snake but it should be snake?
Nagas.
Yes. At least they didn't do that.
I wonder if they would errata that, because Nagas are from Amonkhet, which is where this guy's from. So I wonder if, I don't know what the flavor reasoning is for that. But so last week on the podcast, which a lot of you guys haven't watched or listened to, so if you want more Geek and Seek content, go check out last week's episode where the guys, minus me, were talking about green decks in Commander. Where did you guys fall? I don't really remember. I listened to it and I forgot. Where did you guys fall on mana dorks in general in Commander? Were you guys kind of low on them? Where you're like, there's some I would play, a lot I wouldn't? What was your guys' general consensus on mana dorks? Because I actually think that in creature decks, mana dorks are better than like your 3 visits or your rampant growth or whatever. Because in your creature deck, you have your creature payoffs, right? Like you have your Beast Whisperers or whatever. It's like whenever I play a creature, I'm going to draw a card, or your Guardian Projects, which says the same thing. And then later in the game, you have some kind of Anthem effect where you can close up the game, right? So I think in very, very creature-heavy decks, mana dorks are better. But then, like, obviously they're less resilient to board wipes and stuff than, like, if you fetched out a basic. No one's going to touch your basic land, right? Whereas your mana dorks are very likely to die. But there are a select few that I think are strong enough that are worth running even outside of creature-heavy decks. I think this is one of the stronger mana dorks, but I would say that there are a few that are maybe better. Like this one only taps for green. There are ones that tap for other colors, right? Birds of Paradise, most notably, taps for any color. There's a couple others that tap for any color, right? Or there's I think it's Circle of Dream Druid. I don't remember what it's called. It's the one that it's like a green, so it's hard to cast, but then it's like a Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah, you got it right.
Yes. So there are some that I think are better than this, but this is like, I think this one's past the threshold that it's strong enough that I would play it in certain decks.
Yeah, I wasn't very big on creature-based ramp myself, like mana dorks. I'm not a big fan of them typically, but this one is very powerful and is good enough to where I would play it in decks. But I agree with Morgan where there's definitely a few that are stronger than this. Like the ones that can tap for any color is nice. That one who goes infinite with 20 different things, put a -1 counter on it and it untaps to make mana. That one's better. And then elves, I think generically are probably better than this just because they're so easy to elf ball. But outside of that, he's probably one of the best. And I definitely will be putting this in a couple decks.
Do you think that the Eternalize helps that though? Because like one of the arguments against mana dorks is that they die to board wipes. And obviously it's still going to get swept up in like a Farewell or something, right? But in this I think gets around one of the main downsides of mana dorks, which is, well, yeah, if it dies, I can just Eternalize it and boom, I got another mana dork. And now it activates its own ferocious.
The Eternalize is what makes this the best mana dork ever. Because think about this in every phase of the game. Think about it early, mid, and late game. It's powerful in all 3 phases. In all 3 phases of the game, this is a powerful card. Early, it's ramp because there's mana dorks for 2 mana and tap and add a green. Obviously, you don't play those, but this one has more value printed on it, so it gets by. So it's viable in the early game. Mid game, it provides you the same sort of value that it can provide you early or late game. And then late game, you have the Eternalize that you can bring it back from the graveyard because you played it in the early or mid game. It got destroyed by a board wipe. Now you can bring it back as a 4/4 and the end of the game to maybe help give you some extra power to take somebody out or give you 4 more mana to work with. I mean, I know it's green mana, but it's still 4 mana that you could work with. If you had a card that could give you 4 colorless mana, like, you would still play that People play Mana Vault. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Well, something I wanted to point out was you don't bring it back from the graveyard. You exile it and make a token copy in your green deck. So you're actually going to make 15 of these when you eternalize it.
Doubling season, baby. Yeah,
So,
in certain
yeah.
decks, that's gonna matter.
So
That's
yeah,
gonna matter
this
sometimes.
like I feel like when you look at it from that perspective and you check it from the beginning, middle, and end of every game that this could possibly show up in, it's just strong in all phases. So it's the best mana dork ever printed. Llanowar Elves is not gonna be good on turn 10. It's just not. You're not gonna care about it.
Yeah. Outside of like elves, like if you're actually an elf deck and you're in top deck mode, I would maybe be happier to see a Lion War elf. But
Well, here's what that's gonna do.
If you're just a big mana deck or just like a generic creature deck, this is way better.
If you're in that situation in an elf deck, all Llanowar Elves is going to do is just get you to another card probably. Because it's going to be like, oh, this enters the battlefield. I'm going to draw another card. And, it's not even really helping you in that situation. It's getting you to a place that can help you. And to your point about Birds of Paradise isn't better than this. Birds of Paradise is better than this in the early game, but it's not better than this in the mid game or the late game. Because in the mid game, this can be either a 4/4 that taps for 4 mana, or it could just be a 1/4 that taps for 4 mana. A 1/4 is a decent blocker in this format. It's decent enough. So to me, because it has that eternalized ability on it, that pushes it over the edge and makes it the best mana dork out there. Like, this should just, to me, immediately replace, unless you're in an Elves deck and you care about that type of stuff, or you just want to have a lot of mana dorks in your deck because that's your deck's thing, this should replace Llanowar Elves.
Yeah, I think it shouldn't be understated that this only taps for green because that does have its limitations. But at this point, we are nitpicking. I agree. This is one of the better mana dorks. It's cool. I'm excited to see it. We should make sure Steven gets this for his mono green Rhonas deck. Flavor as well as effective. All right, boys. So for my number 2 pick, I'm cheating again with another cycle. This is the Flare of Blank cycle. So all of these are a colored spell. They're all instants except for the green one because green can suck it. They all can have some kind of on-color themed effect, but you can cast them for free because it wouldn't be a Modern Horizons set without a free spell cycle. And the condition is you have to sacrifice a non-token creature that shares a color with it. So I'll read the black one because I don't think we're really going to be talking about it very much, just as an example. But Flare of Malice is for 2 black instant. You may sacrifice a non-token black creature rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker with the greatest mana value among creatures and planeswalkers they control. And even that one, I think, is like, Jason's not here for that one. That one's, I think, is like the most mid one. I like the fact that, like, if someone like goes to like, because it's an instant, if someone's already going to remove your creature, you're just like, all right, if I'm going to lose it anyways, I might as well get extra value out of it. So like, I like that part of it. I think the green one's probably the worst one. The blue one is a counter. So the green one is like a Cultivate, except it's harder to cast. I think it's probably the worst one, just because we have better options for basic land ramp. Flare of Denial, I think, is also like the black one. It's kind of mid because it's good, but like we already have so many other good counter spells. Like, how many counter spells are you going to put in your deck? And then I think the red and the white one are the best one. The red one is a fork. You copy an instant or a sorcery spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. And then the white one is like a slightly less good. It's kind of like a Angel Song. Yeah, Angel's Grace. That's what I'm thinking of. That mixed with like a heroic intervention. It says, until end of turn, your life total can't change. In permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible. So I think the red and the white one are the best one. I think the blue and the black one are like the mid tier, and I think the green one's maybe the worst one. With that said, though, all of them I think are playable, and I think all of them can have certain homes, especially if you have any kind of sacrifice energy, especially if you're going to inherently have a lot of extra bodies laying around. I really like all of these.
Yeah, I'll say what I said earlier. The green and the black one, I don't like them at all. I would just rather play Cultivate. than this. I would rather play Cultivate than Flare of Cultivation. I would rather play Kodama's Reach or Cultivate. Flare of Malice, I just don't play these type of cards. I'm sure that this is good. I mean, I feel like in Modern it's really good, you know? But, I mean, I just don't play these types of cards in Modern, so... Or in Commander, excuse me. So Flare of Malice and Flare of Cultivation, just not for me. Flare of Denial, I think, is an auto-include in every CEDH deck that has blue. I think that that's what it's going to become, and it's probably going to make it really expensive. But honestly, I'm not going to play this in every deck that I have that has blue. There's not a whole lot of non-token creatures that I can think of off the top of my head that I want to be sacrificing.
I think that's the hardest part for the blue one, because, like you say, it's a CEDH staple, but, like, even that I don't think is true, because you have to have if you want to get the free aspect, you have to have a non-token creature to sacrifice, right?
I would disagree.
Otherwise it's not a free spell. So
I would disagree because, you know, in certain situations in a CEDH game, you can sacrifice your commander and be okay. So if you have your commander on the battlefield and you're going to be able to have access to it, it's worth it to run Flare of Denial, because if your counterspell is going to prevent somebody else from winning the game and you're still going to have an opportunity to win the game, it's worth it. Like, people do that type of stuff all the time in CEDH if they think that they can sneak out a win by countering somebody's spell. So for that reason, I think it's an auto-include in CEDH, but average blue decks, nah, you don't need this. I will say, though, in my Jalira, I think it's right, the Master Polymorphous deck that I have, this is going in that deck for sure, because I'll happily sacrifice her. Like, once I activate her, once it does the thing, she could go away. It's fine. So it's gonna definitely go in there. But then the red one and the white one for sure. I think the white one is better, but the red one has more. It has a higher ceiling because of, you know, it's a fork, potentially a free fork. Definitely has a higher ceiling, but I like the white one more than the red one personally, because I think white's ability to protect, like, using white to protect yourself in a game of Commander is going to be better than almost any other color. Actually, it is going to be better than any other color. So, you know, playing something like this for free, probably going to be all right. And I feel like in white, you will have a fair amount of extra non-token creatures to sacrifice that, you know, you're not going to be as upset if you sacrifice, like, I don't know if people still play it.
Creature.
Yeah, or like your what's the vampire, the mono white vampire that draws you cards when creatures enter? Yeah, you could sacrifice that because you're gonna pull it back with Sun Titan, exactly.
Yeah. White just incidentally has all these creatures that, like, they enter the battlefield, they did their thing, now they're just sitting here as blockers. So then this is really good. I also think that Flare of Fortitude is, like, maybe, like, the second best protection spell now for white. Like, I think T-Pro is still number one, right? Teferi's Protection is probably still number one. This is probably number two, though, right? Like, there's other ones that I would play, but this is probably number two. And I agree that Flare of Duplication has a very high ceiling, but I don't know if you guys play forks very often. I've only played forks in a couple decks, and they'll just sit in your hand for a long time because you're like, I don't know when to crack this off. So that's the awkward part, but the ceiling is so high. Like, the games where you get to do something awesome with it, you're going to remember those games.
Yeah, I was going to say the white is for sure the best one of these, but I think something you guys are not giving credit to the black and green ones over the blue and red is that you're not paying a cost with the black and green ones. You're sacrificing a non-token creature that you're going to get back the next turn. You just are. Red and blue are ones that actually require something. The black and green ones just don't. And because it's black and green, you probably have some sacrifice shenanigans, so you can get rewarded for killing your creature, especially the black one. Very easy. And if you're making your opponent sacrifice stuff, so that's more value. And the green one is like you're sacrificing the creature you're going to get back, who's probably really good when you get it back or when it dies or something. So I think you guys are undervaluing those a little, but
I actually think the black one's not very bad. I actually think the black one's pretty good, especially because black cares about when stuff dies.
Hey, listen, I said when I talked about the black one, I said, hey, this is probably pretty good. I just don't play these types of cards, so I don't like it very much. But like I did make that disclaimer that I did think it's probably pretty good. But
would Flare of Cultivation
the
be
green
too
one,
good if it was instant speed?
it would be.
I feel like
it
it
would
could
be
be.
good.
It's the only one that's
it would be
sorcery.
good. It would be good. Like that's how you should have said that sentence. If it was instant speed, it would be good. But it's sorcery speed, so I would rather play Cultivate or Kodama's Reach. How often, when you're actually, when do you want to play your ramp spells? Do you want to play them
When you top deck your Lion War Elves on turn 9?
Do you want to play your ramp spells early in the game or later in the game? You want to play your ramp spells early in the game so you can get ahead of players. Now, what is going to help you get ahead of the other players more? Sacrificing your creatures? Or just paying 3 mana to go search for a land, put it onto the battlefield, and put another land into your hand? What's going to be more beneficial?
Well, then just do that. This lets you do either one.
Why would but late game, when you have a multitude of creatures to sacrifice, what good is one more tapped land gonna do? What good is what is the purpose of putting another tapped land onto the battlefield versus a creature that was either untapped, tapped, can attack, can block, whatever, has so much more value later in the game than a tapped land does later in the game? The green one is not good. It's not good. Early game it's bad, late game it's bad.
I think I would play the green one in like a mono green deck just because like the floor of it is that it's the same thing as a Cultivate, because it's technically harder to cast than Cultivate or Kodama's Reach, but like if you're playing mono green, it's not. And then in the mid to late game, like maybe you'll end up with something that's not helping you anymore that you could sacrifice for free. Just, you know, I think I would play Flare of Cultivation over Cultivate or Kodama's Reach in a mono green deck. But like the thing that sets all of these apart is the instant speed for me. So the fact that the green one is not instant speed is really painful, because like the main thing I see is like someone goes to remove one of your creatures and you're like, okay, in response, I'm going to get some value. Pop one of these off, right? That's great. But the green one doesn't have the instant speed. So that's what knocks that one down so low for me. But I would still play it in mono green decks, I think.
No, to me, that's what makes it bad. If it was an instant, then it's actually good and it's playable for the exact reason you're saying.
But the floor of it is just that it's Kodama's Reach.
No.
Or, Cultivate.
It's Kodama's Reach
you don't
for
have
one
to
more
sack
green.
Something,
Think about
but in mono green, that doesn't matter.
Okay, but think about what that does for, you know, dual color decks or 3 color decks or 4 color decks or 5 color.
Then I would agree.
You're not going to convince me this card has any value whatsoever. It's bad.
All right. Preston, why don't you go ahead and talk to us about your favorite card from the set?
So my favorite card of the set is Ocelot Pride. It's a 1-mana 1/1 with first strike and lifelink. It's a cat. It has Ascend, so if you have 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, you make a 1/1 white cat creature token. Then if you have the City's Blessing, for each token you control that entered the battlefield this turn, you create a token that's a copy of it. It's making tokens. It's making cute little kitty cats. It's got lifelink. It rewards you for gaining life. It's got first strike, which can be really nice. I just really like this card as a good 1-drop. It's a very good early game creature. It has utility in the later stages of the games because you can start making all those copies with your white deck. So I just really like this card.
It's a very pressing card. It's also finally Modern's match for Ragavan. I don't know if Mono White was trying to find ways to kill Ragavan, but this does it. And this is going to make a big board. This card's kind of bonkers, isn't it? Like, isn't this, like, insane for 1 mana? This is insane.
The Ragavan point was not something I had considered until you just brought it up, and that's huge for Modern, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay,
Pre-ordering for $40.
Totally, completely just eviscerated what I was thinking in my head. Because in my head, I'm like, a 1/1 with first strike? Like, what difference is that going to make? It's a 1/1. It's not going to kill anything.
Kills Ragavan.
And I'm like, oh no, it does. So this is actually, yeah. Yeah, Ragavan has done some horrible things to me in my life, so I'm gonna definitely make sure I find one of these. This card is good. This card has a lot more value than I thought, because I was thinking to myself, a 1/1 with first strike for 1 mana. It's like, make it 2 mana and make it like a 3/3 with first strike. That a 2 mana 3/3 with first strike, lifelink, and this like that's a really 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 strong mythic. But this is still really powerful, just because, like you said, it's gonna make you a huge board state, and it kills Ragavan. I mean, that's a big deal for me personally.
I have no idea if this is actually going to get modern play, because I was thinking about it and I was like, there's not really a white deck. And maybe this allows like a white heavy aggro deck to come into play. Like maybe that could happen because this card now exists, but also because of Orcish Bowmasters, there's not a lot of X1s that are being played in modern right now. Like Ragavan is like the only one that is getting a lot of play right now, because otherwise it's like, oh, here's Orcish Bowmaster, I kill all your creatures. And so we'll see if this actually gets modern play. But I think that's why it's templated the way it is. I think it's templated that way so we can power creep Ragavan. But just on a commander standpoint, like, you're going to make a lot of tokens with this, assuming that's what makes this so good, because a lot of these like low costing aggressive creatures are really bad in the mid to late game in commander, right? Like if you're in top deck mode and you pull this up, if this was like a 1 mana 1/1 with first strike and lifelink, you'd be like, well, crap, that's not what I wanted to get at this point in the game. But because it has Ascend, and if you have that criteria met, that you're going to be making this huge army, and white has payoffs for tokens. So
White not only has payoffs for tokens,
cool.
white has payoffs for creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean,
small creatures.
And you know what these creatures entering the battlefield is probably going to do? Gain you life.
Or draw you cards with your Mentor of the Meek or whatever.
Gain you life with your Soul Warden, or your Ajani's Welcome, or whatever it is. Or gain you life with your Soul Warden and your Ajani's Welcome. You're playing white after all.
This is a very Preston card.
Yeah, I can see why you put it number 1, Preston, and I feel like I know exactly where it's going, because you're going to get the City's Blessing with all of the auras that you have on Light Paws, aren't you?
I wasn't planning on putting this in Light Pulse, actually. I was going to put it in my mono white token deck and probably my life gain deck are the ones where this is going.
Alrighty, so it is time for Jason's number 1 card of the set.
So my number 1 card is Sorin of House Markov. It's a 1/4 human noble with lifelink, and it has extort. And it says at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, if you gain 3 or more life, this turn, exile Sorin House of Markov, then return him to the battlefield, transformed under his owner's control. And when he transforms into Sorin, Ravenous Neonate? A legendary Sorin Planeswalker with Extort. And its +2 is create a food token. Its -6 is gain control of target creature. It becomes a vampire in addition to its other types. Put a lifelink counter on it if you control a white permanent other than that creature or Sorin. And then the best ability on this one is that -1, where Sorin Ravenous Neonate deals damage equal to the amount of life you gain to any target. The amount of life you gain this turn to any target. Oh my god! For a 1/1, you can deal like 100 damage to someone. This is so cool. I mean,
Oh, you deal 100 damage to their creature. Obviously.
Yeah, send a message.
Of course. Oh man,
it's like Aetherflux Reservoir. You guys remember that card from Kaladesh? It's like a storm card that like gains you a bunch of life, and then you can like laser someone's face for 50. It's like you can target creatures with it, but has anyone ever done that? Unclear.
Morgan, I've done that. I've done that in my life gain deck when I got to like 20,000 life and started killing your creatures instead of you. You don't remember that? I've done that multiple times.
I must have blocked that out of my memory for good cause. But that's a good point, right? Like what Preston's saying, like these life gain decks have these incredible means of just gaining a crap ton of life. Like, you get to the mid game, they have a couple of their setup pieces, they can just go, and they'll, like, it's like, how are they going to win? They just gained like 70 life that turn, but like they're not really doing anything to win per se. They're just not dying. This is how you do it. You -1 your little planeswalker, and you just shoot someone out of the game. Make it very personal. It's like, I could kill any of you, I'm going to kill that guy. And I think what really sets this card up for, I think this, of all the cards that are on our list, other than maybe a couple of the free spells that we mentioned earlier, and I guess probably the cat card of Preston's, this one I think is maybe modern playable. Because all you have to do to flip it is crack a food. That's all you have to do to flip it over. Or even easier is if you're in Commander and none of your opponents are dead, you just have to extort it once. You just have to extort one thing, and that's enough life gain to flip it. It is so easy to flip it. And especially if you are having, well, you probably only play this in a life gain deck. But in those decks, this is insane. You are just going to kill people out of nowhere for a -1 on a planeswalker that was 2 mana and then like 1 extra mana to extort to flip it over. It's insane. It's like 3 mana kill someone.
Yeah, and like that's what makes this card really. That's just makes it my favorite card. I'm putting this into Thalisse because what I'm gonna try and like maybe rework Thalisse a little bit. But the one thing that I want to be in there is I want life payoff for creatures entering the battlefield, because I have a decent amount of that already. So I gain a fair amount of life in this deck on certain turns if I'm making like 50 tokens on a turn, which I can do in Thalisse. It's very easy. But the one thing that I will say takes value away from Sorin is that it is a planeswalker, so you can only do this one time per turn. So, you know, unless you have like unless you have like a chain veil or something like that, or if you're gonna be able to take an extra turn or something, you are limited to killing one player per turn. And then there are gonna be times where you don't even necessarily activate it for that. You just plus it and make the food. But I think that where you get away with it is it has extort. So now you're just gaining life just from playing the game. But this card is so cool because of that middle ability. Like, I just can't wait to start slotting this into decks and just start murdering people just out of nowhere. Just like gain 40 life on one turn, play Sorin and like second main phase kill somebody.
Well, and I think it's good as a 99 card and as a commander, because as a commander, you just wait to cast it till you have a lot of your setup. That way, when you cast it, you can immediately just start killing people. And then if people remove your planeswalker, you just easily recast it, right? But then even in the 99, it's really good because think of like the Salmon Frodo precon, right? It's a food deck, right? It's kind of a life gainy deck. It's probably pretty good in the 99 of decks like that, just because you're going to have all these extra foods lying around. You're going to be gaining all this extra life. And even if you can't one-shot someone, you might be able to, or you're at least going to knock them down a lot.
Speaking of Lord of the Rings, this once again makes me really want to build Bilbo.
Yeah. That would be pretty awesome. I've almost built that deck a few times. All right, guys, it's time for our last card for today. This is kind of a placeholder card for me. I'll explain. So this is Wrath of the Skies. For X white. It's a sorcery that says you get X energy counters. Then you may pay any amount of energy counters to destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment with mana value less than or equal to the amount of energy paid this way. So I kind of want this as a placeholder for just energy in general. I really, really like energy. I was playing Paper Standard back when Kaladesh was the newest set, and I have a commander deck that has gone through a few iterations that's energy counters. So I'm just happy that we're actually getting some like really good cards for energy. There's a lot of energy stuff in this set that I could have talked about, but it would have been really boring if all my top 3 cards were energy cards. But this is maybe the best one because it's a very, very good Wrath, especially if you just have a lot of energy stuff. already, because you don't have to pump that much into X to just wipe everything. So I think it's very efficient. And people have talked about before how you could probably just do like X equals like 0 or X equals 1, and that's enough to like clear out all of their construct tokens and their treasured tokens and get rid of all those stupid tokens that are flying around our commander games these days. That might be good enough if you just want like a high wrath count. Then this sits in a low spot on your curve. But especially if you have any proliferate abilities, if you have an energy deck specifically, this is maybe the best wrath for the deck. I mean, I'll probably still run like Farewell and stuff just to have generically good wraths, but as far as on theme, this is the best thing that energy could have, as well as just in general. I'm glad that energy's getting a lot of support in this set.
I don't like this card. I think it should be stronger.
Really?
I think it should cost 1 more white as part of the cost and then not blow up your own stuff. I'd actually prefer that. Right now, I would never play this card. I'm not interested in it at all.
But what if you're an energy deck and you just already have a lot of energy and you don't have to put much into X?
I mean, I'm not super interested in energy regardless, but even if I did, I mean, I guess I might play it then, but otherwise, I'm just not interested. Because, like you said, you can pay 0 to blow up all the tokens, but you're playing white. You have all the tokens.
I will agree with you, Morgan. I do think that this is like the best wrath in an energy counters deck, because if you're playing an energy counters deck, you're likely playing in more colors than just white, and
yeah, my energy deck is 5 color.
Tokens might not be the strategy you're going with. Yeah, so if you want to use this for that, like you were saying, destroying people's tokens, I think that that's probably the best way to use this card. Is, you pump like 6 mana into it, make 4 energy, pay 0, destroy all the tokens that are out there. That feels pretty good to me if you're an energy counters deck. But as someone,
another important thing about it is then you may pay the energy to blow stuff up. So at bare minimum, like, I think this is like the floor of this card is that, the floor of this card is that you could run it generically just to blow up tokens. That you could do that. I don't think you probably will very likely. I mean, you might do that in Modern. I actually think this is so efficient, and there are so many of those kind of token kind of shenanigans, especially with like Urza Saga being legal and stuff, that maybe like control decks will run this even if they don't have any other energy cards. But in Commander, I think you probably only play this in energy decks, but you can just pay a lot of mana into X just to get a lot of energy and then not pay any energy and not blow anything up. You can just use it as a giant X spell to get a lot of energy.
You would still destroy the tokens, because it says you may pay any amount of energy. So 0 is an amount.
Sure. So
0 is an amount you can choose. And then it says destroy each artifact, creature, or enchantment with mana value less than or equal to that. So it will still destroy all the stuff with mana value 0.
I don't think so, because it says you may pay any amount.
You may
like,
pay.
The fact that it's a may
you
means
pay
that
0.
I think you can just.
But yeah, any amount. Any amount is the key part there. So you're saying I'm going to pay 0. And then it's going to say, how much mana did you pay? 0. Destroy all these things with mana value that or less. If we're wrong, correct us in the comments, but I'm like positive that's how this works.
I'm just bewildered that you guys wouldn't even play this in an energy deck.
No, that's not what I said. I said that this is good in energy decks. I said I agree with you, Morgan. This is probably the best wrath in an energy counters deck.
Okay.
But
I guess it was just press them.
Outside of that, I'm not playing this ever.
Because energy sucks.
Well, if you are like me and you are happy to get some energy cards, let me know in the comments what some of your other favorite energy cards are from the set, because I actually think there's quite a few that are quite good.
Here's something else I'll say.
This was just one that I was specifically like, oh, hey, that's pretty good. I can cut my austere command to throw this in there.
Here's something else that I'll say that is kind of a defense of this card. You can pay, like, if you do want to wrath and destroy some people's stuff, like, you don't have to pay the amount of energy. Like, if you have a 6-drop and you want to keep it, just pay 5. If you have a 5-drop and you want to keep it, just pay 4. Now, if your rebuttal is going to be, well, what if they have a 5-drop that you need gone and you want to keep your 5, or a 6-drop that you need? How often do you play board wipes and blow up your own stuff just to blow up the real problems on the board just to save yourself? Like, it happens every Commander game if a board wipe gets played. Like, it happens all the time. So I don't think that is a good reason to discount this card personally. Because I think that
and in energy decks, it's going to scale up.
Exactly.
Almost always.
Exactly.
Because
you're always going to get more.
You probably already have some energy. Probably already have some energy, so then you don't have to actually pay that much into X in order to have enough energy to blow up what you want to blow up. And then that probably means you will have mana left over to let you rebuild after the Wrath.
Or on the inverse of that, you can pay a lot into it, get a lot of energy, and then just not pay as much energy to blow stuff up and still net positive in energy counters if you're more concerned about getting energy counters than you are about conserving mana. So I do think that this has more value than you initially said, Preston. But I wouldn't play it outside of an energy counters deck.
I just wish it was better for those decks.
The card would be better if it was better. I agree with that
The card would
statement.
be better if it was better.
It would be
That's
better
correct.
if it was better.
Well, I'm just saying that because white, like, there are so many strategies where they have, like, at least one board wipe that won't affect them. Like, your blow up non-token creatures for your token decks. Blow up your non-artifact creatures for an artifact deck. There's so many of those that I just kind of wish this had, like, had that in there since energy is such a weak, like, starting point anyways. Give them that little bonus.
Yeah, but I think that because you're making energy and you're going to have a ton of energy after this resolves, that energy is going to help catapult you ahead of everybody else who's trying to rebuild. That's just if you're not able to do that from an outside perspective of someone who's never built an energy counters deck, I don't think you built your energy counters deck right. If you have all this energy and you can't do anything with it to catapult yourself ahead of the other players, I don't think you played the deck right. But that's just me.
I played the Dr. Madison Lee precon from Fallout, and I think that's a bad energy deck. Like, objectively, it's a bad energy deck, and you still end up with more energy than you know what to do with. So, alrighty, guys, so that is going to do it for us. That is our personal top 3s for the new cards in Modern Horizons 3 and its corresponding commander set. But there's a lot of really cool cards that we could have talked about that we wanted to talk about. So if we left out any of your favorite cards, please let us know in the comments. We will be keeping an eye out for that. Maybe we'll highlight a comment of the week. We forgot to do that this week. Oh, well, make sure you're subscribed. Check out any previous episodes that you maybe have missed, like last week's episode where Preston and Jason told you how to build green decks. And make sure you tune in soon for the Modern Horizons 3 Commander gameplay episode that we are going to be doing. Everyone's bringing some pretty spicy decks. It's going to be a fun time. We will see you guys next week for another episode. Bye.